Okay, so classification is the section that we're going to do next after eukaryotic cells. So we have talked about cells and how there are plant cells, animal cells, protists, fungus, bacteria cells and stuff. So we need a way, there are a few million types, maybe 2 million species that we have classified. And so we need a way to keep all of this stuff organized. It's important to keep it organized. So this is the section we're going to talk about how we do that and why it's important and all that kind of good stuff. So we're just going to get started in here. We're not really going to set up anything on the notes. You can just take the staple out because you're going to put these in your binder. So you can just take that staple out of there. The back of it is the next section. Ignore this sheet for right now. This will be your next section. So classification is what we're talking about right now. So classification, to classify things, to categorize, is also the science behind classification is called taxonomy. If you hear of taxidermy, where you take different species and you can have them, if you kill a deer, you take it to a taxidermist. And so this taxa is talking about like species and stuff. So taxonomy is the naming system in which all species are classified, okay? All living things and viruses. We've actually had to start classifying viruses too, but we don't really discuss them in here just to try to keep up with how they change and mutate and all that kind of stuff. But all life, bacteria, from bacteria all the way up to you, is classified in this system. So why would we be interested in classifying things? So think about it. Why is it important to know the difference between a spinach leaf and poison ivy leaf? Okay, they're both leaves. They both can grow, in the wild or whatever. So it's super important to understand the difference between them, because we need to know you can eat spinach and you can't eat poison ivy. Sorry, I've been doing things. You can't eat poison ivy. So that's, that's just one of the big reasons, is so that we know what things do, if things are poisonous, if they're healthy, and what they, all that kind of, if they help you sleep, all that kind of stuff. So taxonomists have classified over 2 million species. 2 million species so far, adding at least 13,000 per year. So it is important that as we keep finding, we have technology now, we can see the small bacteria, we can get to places that we've never been able to get to before because we have, technology that can get in there and get us a sample, or we have technology that we can wear a suit and we can get down in caves where we couldn't go before. So from advancements in science and everything, we are adding on to this number very, very quickly. We need to understand what stuff is, where it lives, what its job is in its ecosystem, and all that kind of good stuff. So classification or taxonomy is how we keep track of all of this stuff, of all of these living things, and how we keep up with how they interact with each other. Is this a predator to this thing, or is it a prey? Y'all, we've had ecosystems that were getting very, very dangerously endangered with all of these, like, herbivores were becoming endangered. And it's because they didn't have enough predators. That happened at Yellowstone. They introduced the wolf. They brought some wolves back to Yellowstone because they had disappeared from there. They brought them back, fixed all the ecosystems. We need to know what things are, what they eat, what they do, all that kind of stuff, so that we can keep ecosystems as balanced as possible. Okay? So let's talk about early attempts. And I mean, like, a long time ago. This became in the early 1700s. We came up with taxonomy. So people had needed to know what was poisonous, what berries were poisonous, what berries were helpful, what plants were good. Medicines, which ones were medicinal, that means what can be used as a medicine. They needed to know all that kind of stuff. So they tried early attempts by just describing physical characteristics. I like to use the example of, there's problems with that. So one of the problems, let's say that you are the person who discovered poison ivy, okay? And you go out and you're like, oh, you know, you're an ecologist, and you find this leaf and you study it. You don't touch it. You study it and you see how it's, growing and everything. And you explain that it's pretty and it's got these pointy ends and it blah, 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 blah. And you don't touch it and you just describe it. You describe how it's on this, how it grows and all that kind of stuff. So you're going to have some physical characteristics about the leaf and how maybe it's a pretty color or blah, blah, blah. So let's redo that scenario, and let's say that you discover poison ivy because you were in the woods and you had to go to the bathroom and you used it as toilet paper. Well, I promise you, if that's how this poison ivy was discovered, you're not going to be saying anything nice about it. You are not going to say, oh, its leaves are pretty or anything. You're going to be like, this is the absolute worst plant that's ever existed on the face of this earth, because you would not be having good reaction because of using it as toilet paper. Okay, so like physical characteristic is bad because we have opinions. I don't know if I'm spelling this. It's been a long day. Opinions. Opinions vary. Experiences. I skipped that one. I'm coming back to it. Here's another example of opinions varying. Okay, I got these two actors, these two very famous people here, and Tom Holland, I think is his name. Brad Pitt, I know is his name. If I were to ask you, describe Tom Holland to me. Like, describe him. Just think about what you know he looks like, and I'm going to cover up the picture, and you tell me what he looks like. Girls, you're probably going to have a different way to describe him than I would, because I am a 44-year-old woman. I'd be like, well, he looks like a kid, and I am not going to be saying, oh, he's got the prettiest eyes, or anything that is like attractive. Not that he's not attractive, but he's young. He's extremely young, so I not attractive. Now, Brad Pitt, on the other hand, if I were to ask you to explain what Brad Pitt looks like, you might be like, well, he's old and he's got wrinkles and he's got gray hair and all this kind of. I would be like, if you asked me to describe him, I'd be like, oh, he has got the prettiest eyes. We would have very different opinions about how to describe these two attractive actors. Okay, and so, and honestly, I'm not good at describing anything like physical characters. If you were to ask me to describe my husband, I would be like, well, he's cute. Well, that's my opinion. You can't use things like that. Or tall, or he's not tall, but you can't use those kinds of words to describe anything. And we do that. We have opinions, and we have varying opinions. Your opinion of your boyfriend or girlfriend right now, of what they look like, would be very different if they break your heart. If they break up with you and you get mad at them. And so then you'll be like, well, they're not as attractive as I thought they were, or whatever. So whenever we're classifying things, we have differences of opinion. If you've had a bad experience with something or whatever, you are not going to describe it in a positive way. Things also change over time. Brad Pitt does not look the same as he used to. None of us do. He doesn't look the same as he used to. And so things change over time. Plants change over time. Some things change color based on the environment they're in. So that is not a good way to do it. But I just wanted to use this as an example because, like I said, these are two attractive guys. We would just have the same group of people. We could look at the same picture and I could describe this totally different, and you could describe this totally different from me. We would describe these two people totally different. Just based on opinion and our age and all that kind of stuff, okay? So opinions vary. Experiences. Delta, which is change in species over time. Change in, there's all kinds of reasons that you cannot use opinion. You can't use physical characteristics. And it's too long. If you were to say, describe to me who your husband is so I can go find him at the football game, I'd be like, well, he's, 5'8", he's got brown hair. Well, you would have to start sifting through, and I would have to explain to you who he is and who he is not, so you can figure out, well, he doesn't have blah, 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 blah. You have to explain every detail about each organism. And like I said, those change over time. If you're trying to describe what this poisonous plant is, and you're seeing it in March, and somebody is like reading your physical characteristics about this plant, and they go out there in August and they're like, well, the leaves are super poisonous if it has red berries, and there's no red berries on this bush, and you eat the leaves, and it happened to be that bush, they just lost their berries. There were no berries at that time of year. It's just not a good way to do it. Okay, physical characteristics only, like alone, is not a good way to do it. All right. So we had to come up with something better than all of that. I know that was a long way to explain this. So this guy, I hate to even say his name because I'm too Texas for this. Carlos Linnaeus. Okay, or Linnaeus, whatever. He's the guy who came up with this early system. And the reason I say early system is because he did this in 1735. Y'all, we didn't have the microscopes to see microbes like the bacteria and stuff. We didn't, we said everything back then, we said it was either a plant or an animal. Okay, so that was like it. Now we have 6 kingdoms, and those have even changed since I was in high school. So since me and your parents were in high school, the number of kingdoms has changed. So this system taxonomy leads to a, what did I want to say there? Sorry, I had to think about it. Leads to a unique, and what I mean about that, a unique two-part name, two-part scientific name for every single species that is classified. Okay, that's because this is binomial, and bi means two. Binomial nomenclature. Okay, binomial nomenclature is what Carlos Linnaeus was able to get us to take stuff and like get it down to a unique scientific name. So when you are talking about something, you go, okay, let's say it's an animal, does it have a spinal cord? If it does, it goes into this group. Okay, so from there, does it have hair? Okay, it does, so it goes into this group. So you keep breaking things down and putting them in groups until you get to a unique two-part name. So we're going to talk about that in just. So this early system did not have near as many taxa, which this is taxonomy. So taxa are the divisions of this. So we say domain, kingdom, pollen class. That's the stuff back here. They didn't have near as many divisions. It was like you're a plant or an animal, and you've got this or that. And then because of scientific discovery, we've made so many discoveries, and we have so much better technology. N-O-L-O-G-Y. We have so much technology that we keep discovering more and more. Once we discovered DNA and we started, and we were able to like compare genes and genomes with, like this fish and this fish, we realized, hey, like this one's actually more closely related to this one. The DNA is way more closely related than this other one. So we were able to make corrections on the categories that things went into. So we have more and more categories because of scientific discovery, because technology is allowing us to make these discoveries. Okay, so the back of that page. So what are these taxa and how are they separated? You have to remember this. You have to remember this, okay? So the taxa in order is domain. We'll talk about these in a minute. Kingdom. Phylum. Class. Order. Family. Genus. Species. Just memorize it. Domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. For some reason, when I had to learn these, we didn't have domain. We just had kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. It just makes, I don't know why, but it just made sense in my brain. But these two things right here, the genus and the species, is what gives us the first and second names of the scientific name. Okay? Know this. So there's mnemonic for helping you to remember their order, because you must remember them in their order. Star will absolutely ask you about this somehow, and you need to know that a phylum is in front of a class. You need to know that a phylum is in front of a family. You need to know that a kingdom is in front of a phylum. You need to know this order. Okay? So, here's your mnemonic for remembering this. Okay, so here's what you need to ask yourself. Did Carla pour Coke on Fantasy's good green whatever shirt? If your name starts with a K and you want to put your own name in there, or your name starts with an F and you want to put your own name in there, have at it. Did Carla pour Coke on Fantasy's good shirt? Ask yourself that, because that is domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Memorize this, y'all. I'm probably going to give you a quiz at the end of this week that says, tell me those in order, or give them to you and say, put them in order. Something. You have to know this, okay? So know it, learn it, memorize it, whatever. Memorize this sentence to help you know that. Okay, so how we know what to put where, what determines how to move an organism into a specific taxa category, or what do I want to say? Let's say species, because it's not just the organism of the species, it's the whole species. So what determines how to move a species into a specific? So what determines how to move a species into a specific category? The very first thing, like it doesn't matter if we have technology or not, anatomical similarities. So this is body. What does a body look like? Like thumbs. Do you have thumbs? If you have thumbs, then you go into this group of primates. Okay. So, or do you have body hair? Do you have gills? Whatever. Do you have green leaves if you're plants? So, how are the bodies, or the main part of the organism, whatever species it is you're trying to classify, how are they similar? So you can put stuff into categories like that, like if a leaf has veins or does not, or whatever. How do they obtain their nutrients? Are they autotrophs, or are they heterotrophs? So do they make their own food? Yes, so they go into this group. Or are they heterotrophs? Okay, then they go into this group. Do they have nuclei or a nucleus? I'm just going to leave it like that. Nuclei, at least one. Do they have nuclei or a nucleus in their cells? And membrane-bound organelles. So do they, if they have a nucleus, they're not a bacteria. If they don't have a nucleus, then they are a bacteria. They'll go into either archaea domain or bacteria domain. And then because of the technology that we have now, we can look at DNA and RNA similarities. We can look at their genes. We can look at how close a gene is by looking at its ATGCs, by looking at the order of its nucleotide and checking out those similarities. Okay, so this is two different ways to think about it, and I really, really want this to make sense to you, because you have to think about this. This is typically how we think about all of these divisions. So if we're looking at from domain, so this would go here. And we're going to go ahead and do this here too. And I'll explain this one later. So domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. I'm going to just write those. I'm not going to take up. Okay, so pause the video and then just fill these in, okay? Domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Pause the video and then turn it back on. Okay, so this is, like I said, this is typically the type of pyramid that you see with this. And what this is showing is that there are less and less species per taxonomic division. So if you're looking at domain, y'all, we have 3 domains. We have, for all 2 point whatever million species that we have, there are 3 domains. You are archaea, an ancient bacteria, which now they're kind of even not talking about them being bacteria, but whatever. They're still called archaebacteria. So archaea, your bacteria, or your eukarya, which means you have a nucleus. So that's it. That's it. There are only 3 domains. There are only 6 kingdoms. So as you move down here, so we take that eukarya domain and we go, okay, all of these things in domain eukarya have a nucleus. But is a plant and an animal really closely related? Or is an animal similar enough to a mushroom that they're going to be in the same kingdom? No. So they go into our 6 kingdoms. So that is Archaeobacteria, Eubacteria, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. Okay, so we have 6 kingdoms. Then we move down to phylum, and we have like, I had a list, I don't know what I did with it. We have like this is parent teacher night, and I have no idea where I was. But as you move from domain, you have 3 of those, and then you go, okay, this is, let's say that we're looking at a human, and you go, okay, they're in domain eukarya because they have a nucleus. So then they're in domain eukarya with plants, animals, all the fungi, and all the protists, and then you go, okay, well, they're not similar to a plant. They're heterotrophs. They, they don't have chloroplasts. They don't make their own food. So they're going to go into this category called Animalia. That's kingdom. And then you move down, you say, well, they're an animal with a spinal cord. So all animals go into kingdom Animalia. All plants go into kingdom Plantae. All protists go into Protista. All fungi go into kingdom Fungi, because kingdom Fungi is there because they look like a plant, sort of, but they're heterotrophs because they're decomposers. So anyway, you've got all these different kingdoms, these 6 kingdoms, and then you go, okay, I'm trying to get to a human. Within the animal kingdom, the human has a spinal cord. Some like jellyfish, they don't. So jellyfish would go into a different phylum. Humans go into Chordata. So we go into specific groups until you get down to one thing. So the genus for humans, you go all the way down, you're doing all this stuff. Like they produce milk, they give live birth, they do all this stuff. They have a forward-facing head. They stand upright. They have thumbs, all this kind of stuff. And then you get down to genus, and we are in genus Homo. And then you get down to species, and we are in species Sapiens. So our scientific name is Homo sapiens. So what this is showing is that as you move down the taxa, you get less and less species per group until you get to only 1, okay? But if you think about these divisions like this, there are more and more taxonomic divisions. So we only have 3 domains. We have 6 kingdoms. We have several hundred phyla. We have several thousand classes. We have hundreds of thousands of orders. We have all these until you get down to 2 million, 2 point whatever million species that we have. So we start off with 3 domains. All let's say it's 2.1 million species that we know about right now and that we've classified. They all fit into 3 different domains. There's only 3 categories and they all fit in there, okay? So as we get down to species, we have to have 2.1 million different species to put all of those in. So by the time you get down here, you have to have a different species for every single one. So this one is showing that you have more and more divisions as you move down, but there's less and less organisms in those until you get down to one singular one. Okay, so in the next video, we're going to talk about scientific naming, how we get to that name, and more stuff about this.